Good evening, everyone. We will go ahead and get started with tonight's meeting. Just a reminder, as we always do at the beginning of the meeting, to remind everybody to be mindful of the norms that we've previously agreed to. And due to the need of holding a meeting before July 1 and the concern of a quorum being present in person, the board will hold this meeting virtually. We'll now have the adoption of the agenda for our special meeting. Under provisions of the Public Meetings Law of the State of Missouri, the board must adopt by roll call vote an agenda that includes the time, date, place, and tentative agenda for the meeting. A copy of the notice and agenda for this meeting was posted on Tuesday, June 29th, 2021 at the Administration Center, 8855 Dunn Road, Hazelwood, Missouri, and on the district website. We all have a recommendation that we adopt the agenda as posted.
So moved.
Second.
No, I unmuted.
Michael, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Hogshead,
Aye.
Dr. Thurman,
Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Ms. Bush,
Aye.
Dr. Graves,
Aye.
Dr. Powell Walker.
Aye. All right, on our agenda tonight, we are revisiting our budget. I want to thank Dr. Graves for suggesting that the board take another week to look at this lengthy, detailed document so that we could give the best input possible in approving or asking questions about the budget to make sure it truly does serve the needs of students. And so without further ado, I will ask for Laura Madrusik, our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, to come forward. And this is for board action.
Good evening, board. Thank you for joining us tonight. And so I'm just going to turn it back over to you. You know, we had our presentation last month, and so you've had a chance to review it. So I'm just here to explain whatever questions you have.
Okay, I have one quick question. I know Dr. Martin doesn't have any questions.
We need a motion first, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do, you're right. So may I have a motion that the administration approve that the board adopt the district operating budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022 school year?
So moved.
Second.
All right, now we are at discussion. I'm going to ask my question, and now I get to tease Kevin because I know he has at least one or two. So I'm going to go ahead and ask my question right exactly, Dr. Thurman. We know there's probably more than one or two. I just wanted to ask Laura, I was looking at the fund balance historical information, that one sheet, and I am not a finance person, but my understanding is one, a healthy fund balance is, I think, somewhere like 24, 26, something like that is what I have heard. And so it looks like the fund balance for the fiscal year 21-22, I guess at the end of the year, will be at 20.84. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. Okay.
And so are we anticipating it to continue to decline? And is that kind of like why we need to look at, I know I heard someone mention something about a bond issue or some other things. So could you talk about that a little bit?
I can. And so the this fund balance is a percentage of our expenditures to our fund balance. And so because our expenditures increased so greatly this next, or we anticipate that our expenditures are going to increase because of all of the ESSER spending that we're going to do, our fund balance percentage is going to go down. However, if you were to look at I think it was in my presentation, the fund balance percentage is going down because our expenditures are going up more than the fund balance itself. But if you look at, let me pull this up. I'm sorry, hunting and pecking here.
You are fine.
Let me see if I can't share my screen. Sorry. Let's see. Hey, it did it. And normally it doesn't do it very right away. So if you look at, so what you're looking at right now, and so the anyone that's watching can see, you'll see that the fund balance percentage is going down to 20.84 from 21.86. Now it is going up from the prior year because we, from the 19.26, but our actual ending fund balance amount is actually going up. So because our expenditures are increasing more than our fund balances, though, because the percentage is so much higher, that it's actually driving that percentage back down a little bit lower. But I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you guys again. But to kind of put it in perspective, we're still in a very healthy spot. We do not have to borrow until we reach about 14 or 15%, which we were back in like 2014, 15, back in those years, our fund balances had dropped significantly. So we're actually in a really good spot right now, but we would like to see those increase.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there other board members that have questions about the budget?
I had,
Go ahead, Courtney.
I had just a couple of questions. Laura, I just want to again thank you for all your hard work. And I just did not want to do you a disservice and to say that all of that wasn't looked at. And so I just want to thank you for doing all that you do. My questions, one of them is really broad, and then the other one is a little bit more detailed. But my first question was, I was looking at the revenue that we received, and I didn't see in regards to grants. So where would that be? Like, I didn't know if, like, I had questioned if we received like the Children's Service Fund grants or the Missouri Foundation for Health. I just didn't know where I would see that if we did receive like those type of grants or federal grants for like particular projects.
That's a great question. So if we were to receive a grant, it would fall up under the very first section, which is local revenue. And so you'll see like under and I actually just, because I'm not anticipating a whole bunch of grants. So I can tell you, we do not receive a children's fund funding. I can tell you that. We are going to receive funding from the Missouri Foundation for Health Innovation Grant. And I just lumped that up under miscellaneous other local. So I apologize. I should have broken that down.
No, and no need to apologize, Laura. I was just wondering, if we did receive it, and I just didn't see, where those dollars go.
Right. We are receiving money from Missouri Foundation for Health for the innovation grant, and that's for the next 2 years, I believe. So we should receive some funding for that this year next.
Okay. And so then my more detailed grant, this one was under the elementary education section, and it had to do with Little Creek certified staffing and the anticipated. I just didn't understand why it was initially budgeted for 28,000, but then it anticipated was 95.
That's a great question. The Little Creek certified staffing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gracious. Sorry. Right. So, I see what you're saying. So we had, for the budget year, that we had like one position there, but we actually have a PE teacher and a science teacher, I believe, over there. So I went ahead and just moved them where I wanted just to break them out in this next year, so that we could be more transparent. So they were actually up here in the elementary school teachers, the very first line item in the original budget from this year. I just tried to move them down because I wanted them to be where they're working, charged where they're working, because they're not really at a school. That's more of a program. So.
Okay, that was all I had. Thank you so much, Laura.
You're welcome.
So it's definitely not an increase for, okay.
I'll just say thank you. I appreciate also the board members last week. When I was gone, I was able to watch the YouTube video in its entirety, and I certainly appreciate all the questions. And my question is really around enrollment. I know Leslie made a comment about enrollment as well, but so I'm sure you're surprised. I did some statistical analysis of looking at our enrollment, figuring out our survival coefficient as we got some data from Dr. Jadali. And, you know, my concern is our ADA is around $3,400 about per student, and we continue to decrease. I know there's different documents out there that we've seen. I know the board got information today that had a different number than what another document we had last week. And so my concern is when we're looking at the next 5 years, potentially, we're looking, if I'm figuring out ADA correctly, about, let's call it conservatively, $750,000 a year in ADA for the next 5 years, each year for the next 5 years, which is quite a bit of money to lose. And certainly I know that doesn't necessarily impact this budget. I just want to put out there for my colleagues on the board to really, I think we need to be mindful that although we want to grow our fund balance with a lot of ESSER's money, our ADA is declining, and I don't see a huge amount of people or development moving into our district. That I just think we have to be mindful that we're potentially, if I'm calculating correctly based on what the projections we got, we're going to be losing probably around $750,000 every year for the next 5 years in ADA money, which is about, let's call it 12 teacher positions worth of salaries every year. So I just get nervous when I start seeing the ADA decreasing, because we do get a lot of funding compared to other districts from ADA. So certainly we have to be mindful of that. And so I know not everyone, math's not necessarily the best, or finance isn't the best thing on the board, right, Donna? And so, you know, she understands it, but certainly it's not her forte. And so certainly when I look at the coefficient survival rate of 0.97 compared to our projection, and I just get nervous when I'm seeing their enrollment decrease significantly over, and it has decreased, continued to decrease since, I think, Leslie, I don't know if you remember, was it 2012 was the peak year or something like, but it's decreased quite a bit every year. And so as a board, I just want to put that on the forefront of our mind, because if that comes true, close to $1 million a year to lose over the next 5 years is quite a bit of money to lose. And I know we're also adding a whole bunch of positions through ESSERS, which the board did get that document, and I appreciate that. I just want us to be mindful of that money disappears in 2 years, and we just need to start being extremely mindful of how we spend money, I guess, and just being extra cautious about that. I know, Laura, you're conservative as well in terms of finances and making sure we're in a good place. I just get nervous when I see enrollment dropping and not seeing a rise in it, and positions and all of that. I apologize, my dog's squeaking his toy. But so I just wanted to raise that out there, that, you know, I just get concerned about that amount of enrollment losing, and potentially, Madam President, at some point having a workshop about budget and planning at some point, because if potentially we lose close to $1 million a year, that I'm sure certainly impacts the budget and staffing, because I know Dr. Davis has eliminated positions over the years or not filled them from VSIPs. At some point in time, push is going to come to shove when we run out of those federal dollars and other things, that we're going to have to figure out what we want to do or how we're going to make that money, because we don't want to just go back into reserves. We're trying to build our reserves up, not take them away and just fill that. So I just wanted to bring that point up about enrollment. I know it's not necessarily about this budget, but it brought to my attention when I started digging into it a little bit more and seeing how much ADA we're losing. And then I know you said in the meeting last week, I think 1.4 million is projected possibly in ADA compared to what you thought we were going to possibly get, which is also alarming. And if it continues to be about $1 million a year, that's certainly a lot of money to lose every year that we just have to be mindful as a board. Keep at the forefront of our mind. That's all.
If I can jump in just real quick, I just want to say that, Kevin, thank you for pointing that out. And I think that is definitely something that needs to be added to, you know, when we get ready to do the strategic plan. That probably is going to be one of our main focuses, is to look at why those numbers are declining the way that they're declining. And then from there, then we can figure out what supports we need to surround that, so that number that you threw out there, Kevin, that we won't have that happen, that we are really working towards increasing our enrollment in regards to having better programming, higher academic scores, and making people want to invest in our community.
Yeah, and that's a number that we have not a lot of control over. And I know that even as we lose students and we lose teachers, all of that should, in terms of our finances, Kevin, shouldn't all of that, if we have fewer students, we have fewer staff, then our budget is going to reflect that. And so we won't go into our reserves if we are still getting the support of the federal dollars and all the other money that's coming in based on our enrollment. So it should keep us pretty stable, should it not?
Yes, I just the concern comes from me from, I know we're adding a lot of federal positions that potentially will want long-term. And so, for example, if we want those restorative teachers and the SEC coordinator, we're gonna have to figure out where push is going to come to shove for money. Because if we're losing almost $1 million a year and then we lose all the federal dollars in 2 years, something's going to have to give because the budget's not growing. And Courtney, by the way, to your point, I did ask Kevin to see if we could get the data on this year's students, where they went, whether they went to private, parochial, St. Louis County, outside St. Louis County, or outside of Missouri. Because if they went to parochial or private, there's potential they could come back. It's the people who move out of the, obviously you're probably not going to get them back, but just to get some idea for the board to understand where are students going when they leave. Because I think it's, are we missing something with marketing? Are we not offering the right programming for our students? What are we missing that's in our control? So I know Leslie was going to say something too, so I'm done talking, I promise.
You're muted, Leslie. Sorry.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. We need to market to the, I mean, we have people that are sending their children to the Catholic schools, and it's not just for the religious part as much as it is for not wanting them in our schools. And that's just a known fact. And so if we can get them in to see what a good job we do, and of course that means we have to do a good job, it will help with having more students. And that's what we need to do, is market and improve and make our schools look good and clean.
And I did want to jump in on something that Dr. Graves mentioned, and that was the strategic plan. And so that's what I'm really excited about with this new strategic plan that we're embarking upon, because with that strategic planning goes hand in hand with financial strategic planning. So we're going to be able to identify goals and prioritize those goals, and that funding should be directed to those priorities. Instead of knee-jerk reacting, throwing money to things that are happening, you know, something happens and then we'll, you know, we're going to buy something to fix it. We'll actually be projecting out with those strategic planning, and we'll be able to plan and prioritize over a multi-year, like how can we apply this funding to what's the greatest need. So I really am excited about this whole strategic plan process, and it will go hand in hand with the strategic financial planning that we can, it's just one process. And so it just, you know, you guys set the goals, or we all set these goals, and then we prioritize, and we can set up measurements. We can sunset, we look at all of our programming and sunset things that just aren't part of our priority anymore. So I am truly, and I think I mentioned that last week too, I'm really excited about this whole process to get started, because it's going to be a whole budget, that whole budget piece goes with it too. So.
And you know what, also, Kevin, to your point, I think one of the things that the board is going to have to do, and also to your point, Laura, we're going to have to be a really, really strategic in approving some of these programs that we're approving, and we can save a lot of money, because some of the programs that we have approved even this year, teachers are not using. And we're putting out a lot of money for curriculum, and we're not using it. And I just think that we need to be, when they come before us, that we really not just rubber stamp it. Not that we have been, but and we've been a little bit more observant of what things are coming across for us to vote on. So I think that's another way that we can watch our monies.
Yeah, and to that, Don, I think at the end of the day, we need to stop the bleeding of our enrollment, to be honest. I mean, we need to figure out how to keep students in our district because, I mean, to lose 250 students every year is significant. I mean, you're talking about almost $1 million of state money that we're losing every year. And if that trend continues, I mean, are we going to be a district size of 5,000 students? Like what size do we project we're going to be if we don't stop this? And so I think
That's almost a school a year.
yeah, and so we're going to have conversations through the strategic plan and looking out like what is. I know we just went through one redistricting of schools and certainly looking at data, numbers, and finances. But I think to your point, just being more mindful about when we're spending money on positions, and also, that's where some of these ESSER funds, I think they're great, but I also get concerned when we spend it on staffing, because in 2 years, that funding will be gone. If we're reliant on those positions, I don't think we're going to have $2.5 million sitting around just to add some of these positions in that we've been get used to for 2 years. So certainly I think that was one of my hesitations. Anytime you add staffing, people get used to having it. And then when you get it taken away, it's really hard to take it away. And then are you restarting or resetting something you already had? And I will say, Madam President, I've asked Laura several questions before our meeting, so I've been able to get those answered beforehand. So we didn't have to spend all night doing that. So I appreciate everything that everyone's brought up and Laura's work as well.
And Dr. Martin, I hope you know that we are grateful for what you bring to the board, just in terms of like the questions you ask about finance. We tease you, but it is all in love, because you bring up stuff and we're like, that's a good question. That's something we should have thought to bring up. So I don't ever want you to feel like you can't ask the questions you need to ask. Are there other questions or thoughts or comments from other members of the board? Okay. Heike, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Hogshead.
Aye.
Dr. Thurman.
Aye.
Laugh.
Dr. Martin.
Aye.
Ms. Bush.
Aye.
Dr. Graves.
Aye.
Dr. Paul Walker.
Aye. All right, so of course the motion passes. And I would now like to request that someone make a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, board, for approving that. And I want to apologize publicly for not having that uploaded on the Friday before, and that will not happen again. I promise you that. So I apologize for that.
Laura, 50 stripes with a wet noodle. No, thank you so much. Really, this is a lot of work and a lot of information. And it was so helpful for me to have it in my on hard copy to look through it. And it's, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. So thank you.
Yeah,
You did a great job, Laura.
Yes, you did.
Thank
And
you.
I understood it all, Kevin.
All right, good evening, everyone. Have a good evening.
Who's
Yeah,
going,
call for
can
the-
I ask a question? Who's going?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Leslie.
I was trying to find out who all was going Sunday to the parade.
Oh, Sunday,
I'll be there.
Okay, it's the 4th of July parade.
right.
So Leslie, I was gonna send a follow-up email to everybody tomorrow and ask for that too, so that we all know. We are still live.
Can
but
I call
did you
for
get
the
you need the
vote?
vote, right?
Okay.
Yes, Heike, please call for the vote.
Thank you. Mrs. Hogshead.
Aye.
Dr. Thurman.
Aye.
Dr. Martin is gone. Ms. Bush.
Aye.
Dr. Graves.
Aye.
Dr. Paul Walker.
Aye. And that's probably my fault because I didn't call for the vote right away. I will work on that for future board. Does anybody else have any thoughts to share? We're still live, but I think maybe we should go ahead.